Yes, sir.
Ask consent that quorum call be suspended.
Without objection.
Mr. President, on January 20th, 2021, little girls worldwide watched in awe as the daughter of a mother from India and a father from Jamaica placed her hand on the Bible of the late civil rights icon and Supreme Court Justice Thurgood Marshall, and she took the oath to serve in one of the highest offices in the land. At that moment, history was made. Kamala Harris became the first woman in American history to serve as Vice President of the United States. During a time when America faced a pandemic, there was hope, and many saw the promise of what could be in Vice President Harris. I sat there, one of the lucky witnesses, to see that historic moment on that cold winter day. I couldn't help but smile and think of my former Senate colleague from California who served with me on the Senate Judiciary Committee. I've served on that committee for more than 2 decades and had the honor to work with many brilliant colleagues on both sides of the table. But then Senator Harris was exceptional, bringing a keen perspective and vast knowledge of issues. During hearings, I always counted on her for intelligent, discerning questions, honed over the years as a prosecutor, effectively reaching the heart of each matter at hand. I remember how people would stick around to hear her ask questions. Because of her seniority situation, she was one of the last to ever ask in the committee. I know there were many witnesses who would have preferred that she would have asked no questions. She was that good. Throughout her long and successful career as a civil servant, Vice President Harris has always focused on what's best for the American people. Whether fighting for working families, taking on special interests in winning, or working across the aisle to pass legislation and conducting critical national security investigations, Vice President Harris has worked in service of every American, no matter their party. 4 years ago, she left the Senate as President Biden's vice president and had a tall order on her hands to bring this country back from a life-altering pandemic and re-energize the American economy. With our democracy and nation's soul at stake on the ballot during the 2020 election, Vice President Harris and President Biden ushered in a new era, embodying their campaign slogan, "Our best days still lie ahead." Under their leadership, America has made significant progress. A little over 4 years ago, the term Infrastructure Week was little more than a wish list and a punchline at worst. In 2021, the Biden-Harris administration, with Democrat support in Congress, made the infamous, quote, Infrastructure Week a reality. We passed the bipartisan infrastructure law. Since its enactment, the Biden-Harris administration has announced $568 billion in funding for more than 66,000 projects across all 50 states, territories, and tribes. This funding has helped repair more than 196,000 miles of roads, updated 11,400 bridges, replaced more than 350,000 lead pipes, and created nearly 16 million jobs. We were able to help millions of Americans head back to work. Thanks to the American Rescue Plan, the economy's back on track, and the world struggled with a deadly life-threatening virus. America had one of the most robust job recoveries on record and the strongest economic recovery in the world, driving unemployment below 4% for 28 months, the longest stretch of low unemployment in more than 50 years. We lowered health care and prescription drug costs, including a $2,000 cap on prescription drugs for seniors and people with disabilities, a $35 a month cap on the cost of insulin, and new lower prices for prescription drugs and Medicare. And since the Supreme Court's decision to overrule Roe versus Wade, Vice President Harris has been an outspoken advocate for reproductive freedom. Over the past 2 years, Republican lawmakers have picked up where the Supreme Court left off. In state after state, they've undermined and even eliminated reproductive health care for millions of Americans, with devastating consequences. But the Biden-Harris administration has been a steady, predictable, consistent beacon in what feels like a never-ending storm. With the Vice President's leadership, the administration has acted to protect access to reproductive health care, including through FDA-approved medication abortion, emergency medical care, and supporting the ability to travel for reproductive health care. On what would have been the 51st anniversary of Roe versus Wade, Vice President Kamala Harris launched a nationwide fight for reproductive freedoms. For as long as I've known her, she's always been a fighter. So I didn't hesitate when she called and asked my support when she ran for president. I didn't hesitate to say yes. Now I know the election outcome is not what we wanted or fought for, but believe me when I say she made a difference in the history of this nation. And I could not be prouder of her strength and resolve during the campaign. At a recent address at Howard University, Vice President Harris said something that'll stay with me. She said, "The light of America's promise will always burn bright as long as we never give up and as long as we keep fighting." Madam Vice President, you have been and always will be the light of America's promise. You have given voice to the voiceless, made those who felt invisible feel seen, and fought for those unable to fight for themselves. It's been a true honor to work and serve with her over these years. I thank her for her service to this country. We're all the better for it. And I yield the floor. Suggest